Welcome and thank you for clicking on my video, and welcome to Robe Sundays. It's really our last chill day before the market opens up and all the craziness starts. And I think this week still can be a little bit crazy as volatility is higher. We're going to tell you how those weekly moves have changed, how those daily moves have changed, but we're seeing some weakness in momentum at these all-time highs, and it leads me to ask the question, are we about to see an October surprise? Maybe something to do with the election, but maybe not, but something that will affect markets, and that's what we are going to get into today as we do some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta. Looking over at AMC and GME, getting into volatility in the dollar. We're going to get into all of it. Make sure you have some notes ready. Make sure we're ready to go because tomorrow we're going to open up and things could get a little bit dramatic. When we say things can get dramatic, you also have to see that proven in the signals, right? We have to see the signals proving things, and we're going to get into that after we give you those weekly and daily expected moves for this week. We do have 587.67 to the upside for the entire week. That is as high up as the options market is pricing in for the week with a 68% confidence. And to the opposite side of that, we have 571.49 to the downside for the SPY here. And for the daily expected moves, this would be for Monday, 582.10 to the upside, and we do have 577.06 to the downside. Now you're going to notice that these ranges have shrunk down a little bit while volatility is still remaining above 20, and that's something to pay attention to because that actually leads me to believe you do have a chance to see something crazy. Now, if no type of thing happens, maybe we can just base out and keep this thing curling up, right? But the main signal that we're paying attention to now is, well, this went to the daily expected move on Friday, right up to it, and stopped, started to turn around. We didn't get that cross down on this MACD here for the SPY, but you do have a 30-minute divergence here, and if that needed to pull back a little bit greater, we would gravitate towards that weekly expected move. So let's look for something like that with this type of look. This has not confirmed. We got to make sure those signals are confirming, but what this can do is pull down this 2-hour. And the problem about pulling down this 2-hour is you have a big 2-hour divergence, right? You have flat divergence across the whole thing, right? We have divergence all the way across this. For the MACD, pretty significant, rather flat for the RSI. But if we pull it back one more step, then you're going to see, okay, now we definitely have it on the RSI. Now we definitely have it on the MACD at the same time. So if the 2-hour does experience weakness here, it is momentum saying, hey, we can start to flip things in the other direction. We can start to go into a 2-hour negative trend. And that's going to be a big deal, how that would actually head down. I really think a reaction down to this level, these lows down in here would be good. Something around 565.30. And that would maybe even bounce back up to then give us that right shoulder, right? We see some kind of look like this. That's what I'll be paying attention to. But since we do have 2-hour divergences, right, we have a lot to break down here, that can roll over a daily chart. And what's the problem with the daily chart? Well, you actually do have a little divergence right here, a little divergence right here. You have it. And then if you go all the way back to this point over here, we actually notice that we almost have multiple point divergence between all of these levels. So you see how turning down right here can really show that formation of weakness, and we do have volatility higher. So when we loop back around towards the end of this video, make sure you watch the whole thing because volatility is going to give us a lot of hints of how this could happen and if this is possible for us to see something unexpected, for us to see some kind of October surprise this week. Before we get into the Qs, I just wanted to thank everyone. It looks like there's a bunch of people that wanted to get that course over the weekend, dedicating themselves to some learning. And if you're one of those people who's still thinking about it, thinking you want to learn a little bit, those links are down in the description for both the swing trading course and the technical analysis course, the using technical indicators course that will teach you how to trade around these weekly moves. And it is not too late. We try not to fill that thing full of useless information. Every single video you do see on that course will have something helpful within it. You will be able to learn from that, and I think it will really help your trading going forward, especially if we remain in an environment where volatility remains higher. It is really going to help you out, and thank you so much to the people who are emailing me over the weekend saying, hey, I'm getting through the course and I'm really liking it. I'm glad to hear that. As we look forward for the Qs, we can see the weekly expected moves. We do have 502.31 to the upside and 484.41 to the downside. Now, key thing with this is, as far as the weekly moves goes, this might look big, but we're on a 30-minute chart. This actually is shrinking down rather dramatically from the past few weeks. So it's saying, hey, at a time where we have high volatility, we're actually shrinking the ranges, making it so there's less implied volatility, which means actually to me that something unexpected can happen, okay? If we have volatility really high, but the ranges are low, or lower, then you would just say, okay, well, if something happens, then that volatility remaining high is something I need to pay attention to. But for the daily expected moves, we do have 496.10 to the upside for Monday, and we do have 490.62 to the downside. So the 68% zone for tomorrow. One thing to pay attention to with the Qs for tomorrow are if this just curls up into positive territory, we can see that extension. Even though this does look like some squeezing, trapping behavior, if that does not fall down, right? If we do not see that actually produce and we just see a green blip here, we can head to the upside, all right? Curls up in positive territory, positive things happen. That's how this really works with the MACD down here. You can learn a little bit more about this in those courses. But for the most part, we want to say, well, if this is, it kind of looks like a man walking up a cliff, right? He did the hard part. Now he's kind of evening out, getting to that tippy top. And what if we end up falling down? Something key to understand here is going to be open up those time frames, make those time frames a little bit bigger for yourself. Don't always be looking at the short time frames and thinking, oh, I have to see a little 15-minute signal in order to take a trade. No, the bigger time frames play out a little bit better a lot of the time. You see a little bit less crazy stuff, just because there's more volume in these bars, right? The bigger the time frame, the more volume that's in it, the more trading that's taking place in it, the bigger the bars you're going to get. So I need to pay attention to this right here. Look at that 2-hour divergence coming all the way across right there, and we could see that as bad. So what you're going to say here is if that 30-minute curls up, you can buy yourself some time, but anytime this 2-hour crosses over, even if it happens early on in the week, we need to be paying attention, okay? We need to be paying attention and know how to manage that risk. That's what we do in the overall course. So what we need to see here is if we're going to break down, I think a reaction down to something like 478.50 would be good, right? We do this, we buy back into that range. Maybe even by the end of the week, we're able to get back into this range because we land in this zone 68% of the time. So maybe we're able to buy back into that range by Friday, and then we see the second leg down, creating that good structure to the downside. So that's something we're going to be paying attention to throughout the week. That's what I need to be paying attention to is if this 2-hour rolls down, I need to watch out because this daily is here. It does have the same divergence as the SPY, very, very tight in here, very, very tight in here, and I can blow up that RSI just so you see it is there. That is a downward direction. That is divergence if we start to turn down early on in the week. So we're paying attention to this because at major tops, the Qs make a lower high. The SPY makes the divergence, and we have the divergence on the SPY. We have the Qs making a lower high if this is going to be that look. So what you're looking for if you want this bullishness to extend maybe into 2025 and us just go through some kind of corrective move to then project us higher, well, then you're going to want to get above this high. We need to get above this high at some point, I would say over the next week or two, to really project us up to here and then say, okay, this is just going to be a corrective move that then curls back up into positive territory, because that would be extremely positive. But if we turn down right here, it's going to start to look like, hey, this might go into a negative trend, and I believe that we may even go into a bear market. That's why I'm still leaving the courses on that big discount. I want anyone to be able to go over there and learn for a cheap amount of money, because people are charging $2,000 for courses that I've took, and I feel like I only took away one thing. People take my course at that big discount and they go, oh, I've learned pretty much something in every single video. And that's what we really want to see out there. But let's be cautious with the market going forward. We pulled up weekly signals. We showed monthly signals. We've done that before. We've done that over the weekend even. And we're noticing that the behavior of a major top is here. So we need to be on our toes. Apple's one that's getting tight. It's really struggling to break through this level, and it is curled up on the daily in positive territory. So that's saying, hey, I still want to make an attempt. We'll see if that's actually able to happen. But I want you to see how price action is getting really tight now, and we're probably about to see an explosive move from Apple. Which direction will that be? Well, we'll have to find out. Break to the upside, we'll see. Look for trap behavior. Break to the downside, we'll look for trap behavior. But for now, we could just say, if this thing can curl down, look where it is. It's really close to negative territory. So if this daily starts to curl down, watch out. It could get a little ugly if we start to break through some trends. But as of right now, it looks like we could head in that upward direction. Let's look at the shorter time frames a little bit backwards here. Let's look at the 2-hour. Because remember what we were saying about Apple back here. We were saying, I think Apple gets that bounce. We were like, this might be some kind of fluke. And actually, we have the shorter time frames on a few stocks saying they want to bounce. We were correct about that. We bounce up. We're flagging out, which is fantastic. But look at that 2-hour about to cross. When this MACD positioning was lower, we said, hey, there is an opportunity for this to be a lower high. So we'll pay attention to that. Now, we were looking for a possible retest of this area. And what that would look like is more the 30-minute curling up again right here. And then we watch out for divergences. So if we're going to go go a little bit higher. That's perfectly fine. We flagged out pretty good here, right? This is controlled, very, very controlled, down by the center line. 30-minute pops up. Watch for that to go higher. That's why we have weekly expected moves on Patreon, because the weekly expected move, you can react up to that level, say, hey, this is as high up as the option market was expecting us to get. And then if you turn down from there, well, then you know, hey, now we have a lot of room to break this to the downside. So that's something that we're paying attention to for Apple. If it makes a 30-minute divergence, okay. If it does just curl over the 2-hour right away early on in the week, we will be ready to react. Tesla is one that's going to have a lot of trouble, okay? This is going to be a little bit rough. Now, I would say this, and I know that this is maybe some tinfoil hat, but for the most part, Tesla comes out and the owner of Tesla says a bunch of things for a certain political candidate, and what do you notice happens after a big event for Tesla? It drops down, and we're seeing a lot of moments like that happen where these businesses, like if they support one side for some reason, we see them their events perform well or unwell. So I'm just thinking about that a little bit, but for the most part, we just want to say, hey, this curled over, it just dropped right back down. Not a good sign, not the best reversal signals in here. Actually, really no reversal signals in here for Tesla. We were just seeing if that 2-hour could really rotate back up. Did not happen. So what can happen from here? You're really, really deep into negative territory, okay? So it's you can see how that's gonna be a lot of work to do something like that. It's gonna be a lot of work to do something like that. It's possible, but the more probable thing to happen is if we do get a reaction up, we come and touch that zone as a sell zone, test it as our breakdown area now, and then we actually see that curl down, and maybe in the future we actually see a divergence form for Tesla. I think that is the most likely scenario at this point. And when we look at this on a big time frame like the daily, you can just see how it's dropping kind of off a cliff. All right, and the problem with Tesla dropping off a cliff here is, look at the divergence at the high. We were trying to make that handle. We're pretty much failing at this point. We're confirming that divergence. We're trying to go negative. We were watching this in case that 2-hour turns back up to make that handle. Didn't happen. So now you're just seeing daily downside, daily downside, daily downside. And that's a problem for the weekly if this starts to roll over. So we want to pay attention because Tesla has experienced great weakness, which is something you want to watch, because actually Tesla and Apple were two of the stocks that saw weakness continue, while other stocks actually headed higher in this area. They actually saw weakness. So that's going to be a key thing to pay attention to. Tesla and Apple both reacting. Interestingly, Tesla doing the reaction first, Apple struggling to break through that level. We'll see what happens this week, but I would just be on my toes. If this weekly does cross, we can head down towards 130 very, very quickly. Amazon, this is the trade setup we gave out on Patreon, and it played out and it was pretty beautiful. It was an awesome trade, fantastic. I took profit at the end of the week on this trade. Why? Because, well, we went up towards the daily expected move on Friday, and I was like, I'm a little skeptical of what could happen next week based on the volatility signals, based on the SPY signals, based on the Q signals. So I'm going to take profit. It was a great time to do it. We did it live. It was a lot of fun to do, guys, because this trade setup was pretty damn good. And we saw the divergence form, the more significant one being right here, and boom, to the upside, able to curl up that 2-hour. So 2-hour divergence is there as well. So we got to be aware if that daily time frame does start to curl up. But at this moment, you would say a pullback does look a little bit likely here. Is that going to pull down, right? We said in this area, it would be nice to get a deeper handle, maybe just coming to the bottom of our zone. We didn't really do it. So we could go do that now. This is still relatively positive. So if that curls down to the center line, curls up, we should expect positivity. If we start to curl down on a little bit bigger time frame, like a 2-hour, you see how quickly we can go negative still here. We can hold up. This is a moment where you can hold up because you're at least going positive to some significance. But for the most part, if this curls down, we want to treat it like it can be really bad, because Amazon is one that actually showed some weekly divergences at the highs, and those have all confirmed. So we want to pay attention if that stuff is actually breaking down. And I believe actually for Amazon, the weekly chart was able to rotate back up just freaking barely, like the dullest green you're going to get. So we do want to pay attention if things are rotating back up, because you may have weekly momentum with you. Maybe you can buy some time here to go a little bit higher. So it's just with Amazon, it's one you're going to more be on your toes. Those signals have already played out to the downside. Now they're trying to react. Is this a dead cat bounce? Well, in order for us to see that, we're going to most likely have to see this 2-hour chart rotate back down in the early time of the week. Nvidia is what we discussed over the weekend, showing those great signals here, and how we're almost making the opposite of those signals right here. So we need to be paying attention. It can go a little bit higher to make that exact signal we saw at those bottoms, at these tops. That means we can get some kind of reaction just up to this level like this, and boom, we can start to head down. So watch out, because this is a very significant divergence, We have not seen that selling come in yet. So if we're going to make a move higher, this 30-minute could cross up. Watch for another divergence point, right? We're getting tight up in this area, and then we'll see if that's able to curl down. We've already curled down the 2-hour. So the most likely thing for Nvidia, if we're just thinking kind of without bias, like nothing bad is going to happen this week, well, still the most likely scenario for Nvidia is to kind of move sideways, right? Pull back with time, get this down by that center line, or pull down to get that by that center line really quick, maybe fill a gap and then turn back up into positive territory and then make a divergence. That's what we're going to be paying attention to this week for Nvidia. But I just wanted to show you how there are 30-minute divergences by the monthly expected move at this moment. If you want the monthly expected moves, join the Patreon down in the description. But this is one trade setup that we posted, and we just said, hey, I'm going to take this trade, but I'm going to be very, very cautious with it. It is Nvidia. You do not want to be caught on the wrong side of Nvidia if it starts to turn up, because usually that thing moves up with some steam at the key levels. So we'll pay attention to it. Right now, 2-hour pullback looks like the most likely scenario for Nvidia. If it rotates a little down further than that, we'll pay attention to it. And the reason that we're paying attention to if that 2-hour rotates down a little bit more is just because things like AMD, stocks that are similar, are seeing some major divergences. So Nvidia not making the major divergence on the 2-hour, but AMD is, and that's a big problem. And you had little 30-minute divergences in here that said boom to the downside. Now we're getting that reaction up to one of our lines, 169.58. We'll see if that's some kind of dead cat bounce. If the 2-hour is able to curl up, though, it is in positive territory. Maybe we head up to our weekly expected move and then see some kind of divergence form again there with a triple divergence, right? We want to pay attention to those kind of moves. 30-minute here is going to be very important because we do not have basing out signals just yet. We have reacted down to a key level, right, to complete the cup. This could be a big handle, reacts up to here. If that curls down, we want to pay attention because this could be a pretty big measured move down. And the only way we're not going to see that bigger measured move down is if we create some kind of small divergence, right? If we react down to something like 160.83 and we do something like this, we see that reverse around and confirm back up on the MACD, that's when we're going to be paying attention to, hey, this thing has a little bit more steam left in it. We might make one more 2-hour upward run for something like AMD going forward. Meta overall just really trying to hold up in these areas, trying to curl up. And I think the main thing you're going to pay attention to for Meta is just a 2-hour. Can the 2-hour curl up into positive territory? As of right now, you're seeing most of the swing trade signals, but not all of them. So if this is going to play out to the upside, we have that weekly expected move for you over on Patreon. But I want you to notice that this 2-hour does have divergence. So this does not have to complete, right? So this 2-hour does not have to confirm. It can, and that's why I want to wait for the signals to confirm things. But we do have a rather flat divergence up here at the high for the RSI and a downward one for the MACD. So that's when you really want to be paying attention because we could get a daily pullback. If we're going to see weakness early on in the week, just look for this 30-minute to rotate down. Where is it? It's really close to negative territory. We have not gotten oversold or anything like that. So I think if Meta does rotate down like this, sees a pretty big move down, we can react up and then see if that makes some kind of divergence in the future. But for now, I just want to say, hey, if that 30-minute does rotate down, I got to be weary of the downside. If the 2-hour can rotate back up, then okay, we're going to head a little bit higher for Meta. AMC, the reason we're paying attention to this now is just because of the 2-hour divergence that has completed, which can roll up dailies. And we always say pay attention when AMC and GME can roll up a daily chart. That is very, very strong momentum. And therefore, we need to get a level on our charts here to see how high up the options market is expecting this to go. And I'm going to give that to you guys for free like we do every single Sunday. So make sure you're subscribed. Hopefully you're enjoying some of the info you're hearing today. All right, so the level for this week is actually going to be 458. So you have 458 to the upside. That's what you need to get across in order to see something crazy this week. If you need the downward level, you can join the Patreon for that. But that's what you need to see in order to get something crazy going on, take the options market off guard and go into a gamma squeeze at this point. For GameStop, we had a similar signal, right? We had a bunch of little 2-hour divergences, 2-hour divergence right here for the RSI, not the MACD at the same time, but you have it across the way and you actually have daily divergence. So daily divergence might might come into play again here if we're able to curl up into positive territory, right? If this can go positive, that's going to be a big deal. That is a major signal that I pay attention to. And last week's number was 2288, but this number, in order to see some craziness this week, is actually going to be 2222, so actually shrinking down just a little bit there. And so you see how easily, if that daily can cross up, we see one more day of positivity. Something like GameStop can really run here, so let's pay attention to that going forward for something like GameStop. We mainly just want to say we pay attention to GameStop and AMC when the signals look good. They're starting to look a little good again, so we're going to pay attention to them. The dollar, we caught that basing out and we said, why are people running into cash very quickly and why are we going to all-time highs as the dollar is really scaling up here? So that is something to pay attention to. Now, if we do see that pullback and we're actually going to head higher, maybe we see some of that rigged behavior. Maybe we see some of that behavior that says, hey, we're actually going to pull the dollar down while the market goes down at the same time, hinting that some people are actually buying in those areas. So that's something to pay attention to. But at the same time, you see how the 2-hour has really bought itself some time, mainly just pulling back sideways, right? Pulling when time here, going sideways. See if that thing is able to curl up into positive territory. I think the dollar may just continue here. Maybe we see that drop off for a second, but I really think the dollar might just continue higher. It's in a very positive trend for your 2-hour chart. Now, as we switch over to something like volatility, remember we had the major reversal signal here saying, hey, that daily is going to curl down. We're going to see a short squeeze, right? That's what we said when we saw this signal. We said, watch out if this crosses, because that could mean we're going to get some kind of mini squeeze. But at this point, have we curled down the daily? No, we have not. We haven't curled down the daily. And does this have a good opportunity to rotate back up? Well, we've reacted up to this level. We've created that handle. So if this 2-hour crosses, it can come in with some steam, right? All of this can lead to the upside. So we'll pay attention to it if this starts to curl up on our MACD. As of right now, does this have a good shot of turning up into positive territory? It does, and you actually completed that at the end of the week. You completed it just with a tiny, tiny green bar. That can go away on Monday, but we want to pay attention as volatility can see a move here. If it does, we are above 20, and we also have that time where the weekly expected moves are shrunken a little bit. So maybe the options market isn't pricing in volatility this week, and if something happened, like an October surprise, that could affect the market pretty greatly. When those ranges are a little smaller, we can break gamma levels, we can take back gamma levels very, very quickly with that happening. And just so you're aware, we do still have the crash signal. That's why we are going to continue to pay attention to volatility going forward, where the 50 holds above the 200. We have to pay attention to that. We have some structure here. If that 2-hour turns up, something might be bad. And I'm making this video Sunday morning, so we'll see what happens with the rest of today, maybe going into tomorrow. So I guess the main takeaway for me here is, are we going to see something bad, as it seems the options market is expecting a little bit less from the market going forward? Now, that would mainly tell us that we expect some kind of consolidation or smaller swings, but volatility is remaining higher, saying, hey, we could still see those bigger swings. So it's kind of a two-sided story there. We'll see which one plays out. Obviously, all we have to do is trade like water and follow our signals, and we'll be just fine, right? If we manage our risk and all that good stuff that we talk about in those courses down in the description. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you for liking and subscribing. I hope you found this video helpful in some way, and I really do appreciate it. We will be live tomorrow morning to talk more about the stock market and see how all of this is playing out. So feel free to come join me and ask some questions. But thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Have a great Sunday. Go have some fun today, and tomorrow be ready for some trading. All right? Peace.